Hi there. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of rendering. We're going to be bringing models out of ZBrush Core Mini, so it might not look like this. In fact, you'll only have one object. You'll probably have only this, probably nothing else. Um, so I went in and added some eyeballs and some eyebrows as well. Um, on my side, I just exported them from ZBrush. However, you could also just make them yourselves. Like the eyeballs, for instance, they could just be a sphere, and you can just rotate those, scale those, and then apply some colors to this, right? So for these eyeballs, I have 3 materials on it. Now, normally coloring is handled with texture maps, so it's an image that you wrap around the object. Instead here, I just went in and changed the base material of the object itself. Now, if we were to create an eye, we would go in and model this up right here. I'm just going to push those in like so. And you can just go ahead and select all of these, or you could grow your selection with Shift and then period, and then just kind of remove the excess, and then extrude it. Boom, right there. So we have a rudimentary eye right there. Now, for materials, if I hold right-click over my object, you can see I can assign a new material. And we're going to be using Arnold standard surface. And I have applied this this new material, right? And I'm just going to call this I2. I already have I1 in the scene. And you can adjust these sliders for color. I'm going to crank base up to 1, just so we know that's exactly what we're working with. And this color, see when I shift it to black and white, the object does the same. I can go into these options and make it whatever color I want. This is like, what, some sort of goldenrod sort of color right now. Shift that down into like a burnt ochre. Any of these. So I'm going to go to, since it's eyes, usually they're like pink, but super white. Super white. Because there is still some blood vessels under the surface of those working. And then you ask, well, how did you get the other colors? So we applied that material to the object, right? And that's fine. If we go into the faces now, we can apply this material to those specific faces. So if I go in face mode, and I just selected these edge loops, left-clicked one face, shift double left-click the other one, shift-click this one, shift double left-click that, and then material attributes, or no, my bad, assign new material, and we're going to go back to that Arnold folder. We're going to go to Arnold Standard Surface Shader, crank this up to 1 again, and I'm going to get some nice blue eyes. I'm a little bit colorblind, so this could be more in the realm of purple, but who knows, right? It's kind of like a grayish blue, turquoise sort of color. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So it's a pretty dark blue, probably a little bit too powerful, that's fine. And then we're going to do the same thing for the pupil. So select this. I'm going to use Shift period to expand my selection. And then I'm going to Control left click this, Control double left click this to deselect that. Assign new material, Arnold Standard Surface Shader. And I'm going to just crank this all the way to black, up that up. And then for specularity, I'm going to increase the roughness. Now, this roughness slider controls how shiny the surface is. If I go into my object, you can't really see it in the viewport for the time being, but when we render it out, you'll see that. And I see no better time to render it out than right now. So if I go into, let me close this down. This is what we're going to be using to preview our render. But if I go into Arnold, open Arnold render view, let me get these out of the scene as well. I'm just going to hide both of these. I just did Control H to hide those. You can always find something that you've hidden in the outliner again. Unfortunately, I have a billion hair pieces because this came in separate meshes. I don't want to combine that and waste you guys' time. But here are those lights that I just hid. With Control H, you can just do Control Shift H to unhide those. But yeah, that's the outliner right there. It comes into use when you're modeling complex shapes. Now, if we go into Arnold, open Arnold render view, and press the play button, your computer's going to think. You'll hear it going, struggling, and you have this progress bar at the bottom. It's rendering out. Oh, and it rendered nothing. Oh no, tragedy. So what's happening there is that you don't have any lights in the scene. And if I minimize this, if I press 7, oh, this thing's still trying to render down here. Let me, oh no. Oh no! let me pause that for the time being. But yeah, so if you press 7, you're going to go into lit mode. 6 is just display texture maps on your shaded. 5 is just regular shaded display. Since we're using material channels to color this model, they're still gonna show up in regular shaded mode. But if you did have images creating the color and specularity of your model, then it would have they would have shown up as still gray in that viewport. But we have the materials all set up now. And for the skin, it's that same process of that assign new material, and then you just drag those channels around. So that's what you do there. However, we have this eye, right? And we want to see that now. And it wasn't rendering out because we have no lights in the scene. So if we add a light, an area light, you can drag that around. You can kind of see where it's pointing, where this arrow comes out. So if I drag this here and set it and zoom in on this eye that we just made, now if I press play, notice how it's starting to actually render that up now. And you can see that you can kind of see like the jagged edges of all this. So if we go in, let me click this bad boy, and if we press 3, it's gonna make that smooth preview mode, and it'll get rid of that jaggedness. And so we can go in and control how much the light is controlling that, right? So if I zoom out, I'm going to click on that light control. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of hard to operate Maya while this thing is rendering up, but we can go in, and I just clicked on that light in here, and oops. There we go. Now we can adjust all the settings for this light, and I'm just going to rename it. I'm just going to name it Fill Light. There we go. And I'd say I want to increase the intensity because I want the scene to look kind of alive. You know, I don't want it to be this drab sort of lighting. And this is looking more like a sort of kind of interior setting almost. I kind of want to go into the color and adjust the color of the light. Remember, because we're on the light. I'm going to make it yellow. And give it a little bit of warmness to it. Now I'm going to probably adjust that down because it looks like this. Well, it looks like there's like a wildfire or something. You're kind of blotting out the sun. So I'm going to keep it something like this. And You can. I mean, look, there's like a bunch of different options in here. You know, you can adjust all of these parameters, and they will, they'll of course do different things. I'm not going to get into a lot of that in this tutorial. This is just kind of like brief rendering, but you can also up the quality of the samples that it's doing in here, and adjust that detail. However, you can also go into your render settings up here. Pop those open, and then we're going to switch to Arnold Renderer. And here's where you input your resolution. Right now we're in 540, which is like really basic kind of. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I think it updated over there. And you can see a bunch of different sliders in here. I usually like to update or up the anti-aliasing, which is this top one. But be warned, the more you do this, the stronger, or the longer that the render is going to take, but the higher quality that it's going to be. Or it's going to be higher quality this way too. I'm going to make sure that I am using HD 1080. And there you go. Now it's going to be rendering. Notice how it's 1920 by 1080 in here. I think we should probably leave this at 540 for now. That way it doesn't take years for this thing to render out. Notice the size of it decreased. But it'll get us a lot closer to, it'll just be a lot easier to preview that way. So that's the eye, and notice this one down here is shinier. It's because I have a, let's see if I can select, mine's going a little bit slow. This is hard to do for your computer. But if we go into the material attributes, I just made like a shell over that eye, and in the transmission, I adjusted that weight to be way high, to be super high up, and I also cranked down the roughness on that. So this material has a low roughness rating. So think about it as like a surface that has a lot of pores is going to render out very flat. It's going to look kind of more like this eye. But something that's rough, it's going to look more like glass. It's going to have that shine. So notice how, as I decrease this, that eye loses its glossiness, because that's that roughness of it being lost. So I'm going to crank that back up to there. And I'm not so concerned with this now, this eye. As you can see, mine is struggling. So I'm going to just hide that. And you can see it hit it from the renderer before the viewport. I'm going to pause this so I can kind of start adjusting some stuff. So if I zoom out back here, I also added this little pedestal. If you want to add that, that's fine. I have this one main light, right? And I'm gonna kind of create some more interest with a rim light. So it's gonna kind of pop the back of the character. So if I go in here and press play again, oops, you can see that back part is getting kind of illuminated. And that's always nice, because it adds some interest to your renders. If you really want to get into lighting, that is its own career path, so that's completely fine. Sorry, Maya is taking a while. So let's go in here. Oh man. I'm going to crank down the samples on that so it doesn't struggle as much. so we can get faster renders. Just for the time being. Yeah. Yeah, look how much faster that is. Of course, it's not nearly as quality, right? Because I cranked it down to no anti-aliasing. You can see a lot of fuzziness in there. But it's a lot more performant. So I'm going to keep with this. And yeah, just use this preview preview frame to kind of dial in your lighting. Get it to somewhere where you like it. You can always go into this light and adjust the color. I like to have a nice little cool feeling to this backlight. Again, it's just trying to add some interest in the render. I'm going to up the intensity of this one a little bit. And yeah, that's pretty much it. When you're good to go, when you want to do the final render, like if you want to, when you want to save this out as something else, or as like a final image, we're just going to go into our settings, go into HD 1080, Arnold renderer. We're going to crank this up to like 5. It's going to take a while. And then we also have to adjust our camera to be in the right spot. Because we want that head to kind of be filling the frame as much as we can. Let's crank this back down so we can get that view to be where we want it. You can also use, I'm just going to turn this off, you can use your resolution gate up here to kind of see as well. So if I, notice how it's at 1920 by 1080, if I put that in the right spot, right there, this should be set up for a good render for us. Actually, we can get a little bit of that shelf that we're in. And then we are good to go. I'm going to render that out. I'm going to crank this up. All right, and you can see that we got this nice clear image after it all rendered up, and we can just go File, Save Image. And this will default here, my project folder. We're going to set that up next class though. And I'll just put it with the rest of the sculpt and name it whatever you want, render, and save. Boom. I'm going to pop that open with my other monitor. And you can see it's a nice clean render. Simple. All right, there you go. That's it. Thanks for watching.